Mary prayed without rest, begging for absolution the world would not give. Her daughter was gone, but the uneasy feeling around her death wouldn't go away. The nights dragged on since her passing. Silence and grief pressed against every wall of Mary's once joyous home. She wrestled with heaven for a sign, until at last, it answered. Late one night she looked up from her prayers, and at the foot of her bed stood the figure of her child, as clear as if she were still alive. But her spirit brought no comfort. It carried a warning. She had been murdered, and her killer was still free. West Virginia's new River Gorge National Park. It's a place built on extremes. Exhilarating whitewater rafting adventures. Serene sunsets spilling over endless mountain ridgelines. A short distance away, in Greenbrier County, the past isn't just preserved in old buildings. It's carried in a story so strange it still clings to the hills. A story of grief, murder, and the ghost that would not rest until her killer was brought to justice. Zona Hester was 23, stubborn and spirited, the kind of young woman who wanted to choose her own life. In the fall of 1896, she did just that, marrying a blacksmith named Edward Shue, known to locals as Trout. To her mother, Mary Jane Hester, it felt too sudden, but Zona was determined, and for a short while the marriage looked loving enough. On January 23, 1897, a bitter cold settled over the hills. Zona had been sick for a few days and had been attended to by the local doctor. Edward was busy working at his blacksmith shop. He sent a neighbor boy to check on his wife and take care of a few chores for her. The young boy would stumble upon a scene that would haunt him the rest of his life. A faint trail of blood led up to the steps and across the kitchen floor to a closed dining room door. When he pushed it open, he nearly tripped over Zona's body, stretched out on the floor, eyes wide open, as if fixed in a grim, unnatural laugh. Curiously, by the time the boy returned with the doctor, Edward had taken his wife from the floor and placed her on their bed. Even stranger, he had redressed Zona, fastening a stiff collar high around her neck with a scarf to hold it in place. Edward was seemingly inconsolable. He cradled her head, wept, and refused to step back long enough for a full examination from the doctor. The cause of death was scribbled down as everlasting faint, or heart failure. Edward wouldn't permit anyone, not even her mother, to go near her body. 2 days later, she was hurriedly buried. For the neighbors, it was tragic. For her mother, it was unthinkable. Something about her death was off, and she would not let it rest. Mary Jane prayed night after night for answers. And then, a few weeks later, she said, the answers came. 4 nights in a row, her daughter's spirit appeared to her, each time clearer and more insistent. Zona's spirit revealed that she had been strangled by her husband in a fit of rage, her neck broken at the first vertebra. Mary Jane told neighbors, friends, and finally the prosecutor. Whether they believed in ghosts or not, her conviction was impossible to ignore. Authorities finally agreed to act. Zona's body was exhumed on February 22, 1897. The autopsy confirmed it. Her neck was broken, her windpipe crushed. Edward's behavior immediately after her death and during the funeral now looked more sinister. Suspicion hardened into certainty. Edward was arrested and charged with murder. The trial began in June 1897. The prosecution leaned on the autopsy and Edward's suspicious behavior, but everyone in the courthouse knew about the ghost. Mary Jane Hester took the stand. Calmly, she described how her daughter had appeared to her night after night, revealing the crime. The defense tried to paint her as superstitious, but Mary Jane never wavered. It was also brought to light that Edward had been married twice before. His first wife, Allie, testified that he was abusive. His second wife, Lucy, also died suddenly under suspicious circumstances shortly after they were married. But even while he was in jail, he spoke to reporters about his ambition to eventually wed 7 women. He was convinced that the evidence around the case wasn't strong enough to convict him. But on July 11th, after just over 1 hour of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict: guilty. Edward Shue was sentenced to life in prison, where he died 3 years later. The death of Zona Hester remains the only case in American history where testimony about a ghost was entered into official record. Years later, historians would notice a strange coincidence. On the very same day, Zona's obituary ran on page 3 of the Greenbrier Independent. The front page carried a ghost story from Australia, a murder solved when the spirit of the victim appeared to demand justice. The parallels are eerie, almost too close. So what really happened? Did Mary Jane Hester copy the news story, consciously or unconsciously, to force the town to act? Or did her daughter's spirit truly return, unwilling to rest until her killer was named? In Greenbrier County, there's still a state marker by the roadside. It doesn't hedge or call it folklore. It declares plainly that the ghost of a young woman appeared to her mother and revealed the crime. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, Zona Hester's voice was heard, and because of that, justice was done.